Okay, so, well, all right, so a lot of them we've already seen. We got our default scene. Comes up, unless you've got that VR preview thing, which you got, you probably saw the thing with the ladder and the lights and the, you know, like a paint can or something. And
With the room setup.
the room setup, yeah, yeah. So normally what you get is just this empty sort of scene here. And then I can come in and start creating some default stuff. So Unity's got some basic 3D objects, primitives like cube, sphere, capsule, cylinder. And I can't really do a whole lot with those, but those are my essential basic building blocks for laying things out. I have other different types of particle systems. I could put lights, I could put sound emitters, put all that stuff in there. But if I want something more elaborate than that, I have to go externally. But how much does I want to go over? Yeah, talked about components, adding and modifying primitives. Okay. One thing that could be a little bit confusing is materials. So I've got this default material on this sphere here. And the cube also has the same default material. Oh, I'm going to rearrange this a little bit. This is the way I normally like it laid out. I like my project view under my inspector, and I like my console over here under my hierarchy. The way my console is always, I get access to everything and my console is always present. All right, so I'm going to look at my project over here. Then under my assets folder, I'm going to create a new material, a new folder for materials. So I can right click, go to create. Somewhere on this list I'm not seeing it as folder.
It's the second one.
Thank you, thank you. And then I can do right click, create, and then I'll go to material as well now. So now I've just created a new material. And I'm going to come over here, and there's a number of different ways that I can assign materials, but just dropping it on the object in the hierarchy seems to apply it. Now, I created this material. I didn't make any changes to it, so it's exactly the same as the default material. In fact, if I create a new material, what I'm getting is a copy of the default material. And if I look at my cube, now down here at the bottom, it says my material. So if I come in here and I start making changes to my material, so I can click on this thing and it'll bring up a different color shader or a different color selector, and now I can look around. But notice what it's doing. More specifically, notice what it's doing to the sphere. So because the sphere and the cube have the same reference or reference to the same material, if I make that change on one object, all of the objects that have that same material are going to see that same change. So that's something that's really important to bear in mind if your Unity scene starts getting really elaborate. The material that I use to define the way this water bottle looks can't be used anywhere else except this water bottle unless I want it to behave just like the material on the water bottle. If I make a change to it anywhere, it makes a change to it everywhere. Now what?
The SDK won't work on the computer, so I can't get a build.
Okay, I'll take a look at it in a little bit.
Alright.
What do you mean the SDK program? We'll talk about it later.
I mean,
Okay. So I've mentioned a couple times already how Unity is not really well suited for creating assets. It's not a 3D modeling package. It's not a texture editing package. It's not a sound editing package. So if you're not into making all of those things, where's a good place to look to get them? Well, 3D models, there's actually a lot of different websites where I can go to get 3D models. But Unity runs an asset store that's available right in the browser. So I can go into the editor and I can go to Window, go to Asset Store. And this is why I suggested that everybody go to Unity 3D and create an account, because the asset store will track all of your purchases, and most of our purchases are going to be free purchases. But it'll track all those. So if I log onto this machine, I can log onto the asset store and download all the assets that I've already got if I need to use them again. If I go to a different machine or if I reinstall Unity, I don't have to pay for that stuff again. Even if I don't actually pay for it, you know what I mean. It's there. It follows me around. And so I can look at some type of, let's see, maybe I want to build a planet. I'll do a search for planets, and it gives me all sorts of different assets that I can download and incorporate into my project to sort of fill that talent gap. If I'm looking for a character model, or if I'm looking for a gun, or if I'm looking for a prop or a set or any kind of textures, the asset store is a good place to look. There's also a lot of scripts. There's a lot of systems on assets on the asset store. Shader editors and different ways to extend the game engine and the editor itself. Now I can come over here by pricing, and you see that a lot of these have prices on them. Right, so there's one for $27, there's another one for $10. And some people actually make a really good living just developing assets and then putting them onto the store. But if I come over here and I go to price, let's see, price range from $0 to $2,000. I wonder what a $2,000 asset looks like. But I'm going to slide that all the way down to 0. So anywhere between 0 and 0 is what I'm interested in. And now I see all of the free assets that I can use. So selecting one of these, 35 users, average of 4 stars, that's not bad. I click on download, it's going to download my asset, and then it will incorporate it into the project and I can start using it. So the asset store is actually where you get a lot of the things that you want to build together. Character models, animations. So now I've got it downloaded. I'm going to import it. And I'll get this little window over here that gives me a preview of all the things that it's going to import. So it's going to import a bunch of materials and some texture images and some models and then some prefabs and then a C# script. And we get to watch another green bar. All right, so I'm going to go back to my scene, and nothing has changed in my hierarchy over here. But if I look under my project, I notice that I've got a new folder called Planet Earth Free. Free Planet Earth. Now if I look at prefabs, I see that there's an Earth High, and an Earth Low, and an Earth Medium. I'm going to go with the High Earth. And there it is. It's not that great. Why is it all blue? What's up with that texture? That's bizarro. Well, okay, so you get what you pay for.
No, it's not.
Right, because there's an object over here called Earth Glow. So, also, talking about prefabs, I dragged this out of the project folder and I dragged it into my scene. And you notice how the text is blue? That tells me that there's a prefab connection between this object in the scene and an object in the project folder. So, if I had another object, let's say I had a file in here and it was called cube, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's any connection between the cube in the project folder and the cube that's in my scene right here. Because the black text is telling me that this is an instance of something that only exists in and of itself. It only exists in the scene. But because this Earth High has a blue text, that's telling me that, hey, there's some sort of prefab associated with this, and if I make a change to the prefab, it's going to update the change in this. So I can right click on this, I can go to select prefab. It tells me exactly, takes me right to the prefab in my project folder where it is. I can look at this Earth Glow object, and it is an object. And it is probably the thing that is making this whole thing glow green or glow blue because of this material that it's got on it. But I could turn off the mesh. Well, that should have changed this over here. Why didn't you turn it off? So that's probably something that they did in their prefab. I'm not sure how that glow is supposed to work. Because normally when you look at like a picture of the planet, it glows around the edge, right? It's not this, the whole thing doesn't glow. It only glows around the edge. But anyway. So, quick and dirty, absolutely free. If I wanted a model of the planet Earth, I could find one off the asset store. And all sorts of different assets as well. Terrain tools, trees, everything from guns to special effects, post-processing effects. If I wanted to make something glow or particle effects or something like that. There's all sorts of stuff on the asset store. Part of my problem is I learned how to do this before there was a lot of things like the asset store. So my first inclination is to sit down and try and design it and develop everything from scratch myself. And I never think about looking to see if somebody's already solved my problem and the solution's just waiting out there for me to download it. All right. And there's lots of different places that we can download our assets from. All right, play mode. When I go into play mode, I'm actually trying to play my scene. Oh, and my camera is inside the Earth, so I can't see anything. So there's my planet, and there's my camera, and yeah, I can see my camera is, my model of Earth is much bigger. Now, when I've got my camera selected, I also see a preview of what the camera looks like over here. And if I go back to my game, there's what that looks like. Well, Earth should probably have like a 23-degree rotation. Now if I press play, now it goes over to the game, takes me back over to my game mode, and then it shows me how my game would run. How my game would run normally if I were to build it and run it. This is what it would look like. The camera's not moving. The Earth is just sitting there slowly spinning. Looks like there's a behavior on the Earth that makes it spin. And if I change any of these values while the game is running, I'll see those values automatically update. But what happens when I go out of play mode, any changes that I make to any changes that I make in the editor while the game is playing get ignored, or they get tossed out. So you can start up a game, you can start playing around with it, you can start making changes in the inspector to different components, and you don't have to worry about those things being permanent. Because once I leave play mode and I go back to my scene, all of the changes that I've made get tossed out, which is a good thing. It's also a bad thing, because if I get it set up just right, I want it to stay. How do I make it stay? Well, the way you make it stay, so I'm in play mode, and let's say hypothetically I'm coming over here, and 1 is just way too low. I'm going to go with 247.2356. That is the speed I want right there. That is the absolute perfect speed. I've seen people take screenshots of this so that they can remember those numbers. Or I had a student who would just scribble everything that he did down on a piece of paper. But what you can do is I come over here, and this little gear that's right on the corner over here, I can click on that gear, and I can go to copy component. Then when I come out of play mode, I go back to the gear, and now I've got paste component values as an option. So you can copy the component while it's playing, and then when I go out of play mode, I can paste the component values and sort of retain all the stuff I was playing around with.
So if you change transform and spin free, do you need to copy both?
You need to copy both.
Can you have both in the clipboard at the same time?
No. So it's a bit of a kludge. Yeah.
So you can only really save one thing then?
Save one thing at a time, yeah.
Okay.
That's not universally true. Some things like sound, if I make a change to a sound, or if I make a change to a material in the project folder while the game is playing, that change will persist. That only applies to things that are in the scene. Yeah, and it can be a bit of a pain. It can be a bit of a pain, but not as often as it might seem right here. How's everybody doing? We've been going for a little over an hour. Nobody wants to take a break or anything?
I'm
All right.
away for a bit.
All right, good. Okay, building the application. So we really want to make sure that the scene has been saved by this point. If I go to build settings, this is where I decide what my platform is and a bunch of different options. Didn't really want to get into Android like right away, but right now this project is set up to build for Android. I've got different sorts of options for building for Android. If I wanted to switch over to PC, I could switch there and hit switch platform, and it'll go, basically what it'll do is it'll reload the project, but it'll recompile all the assets into PC assets instead of Android assets. So right now the whole thing is sort of geared for Android. When it's processing the textures and processing the different assets, it's compressing them into such a way that it knows they're going onto a mobile device. It won't be quite so frugal with a PC-based project, and it'll also gear the compilation process to sort of a PC framework. The same thing if I'm going to WebGL. If I wanted to build this into a web page, I could make that determination here, switch the platform, and it'll go back through and it'll reload the project. But now it's looking at more WebGL based stuff. And there's so many different platforms. If I wanted to build a Facebook game, I could use Unity to build a Facebook game. Some of these things, it's got support for a Tizen. I don't even know what a Tizen is. So once I've determined what my platform is, I can come over here to player settings, and it's where I configure the finer details of the executable that I'm actually building itself. If I'm going to be publishing onto an Android device, I have to give it some sort of company name and a product name, and then I have to give it a package name, and it has to be something new. I can't just use the default package name that comes with it. If I have credentials that I want to put into this, if I'm trying to publish it, I can set those up down here. And if it's going to use any kind of augmented reality or virtual reality, I can set all those things up in here too. If I go to add open scenes, or if I click on add open scenes, it added the scene that I have to my project. And it's got both of them checked. So this is always going to be really important, especially if I've got multiple projects in my, or multiple scenes in my project. Because you can think of a scene as like a level in a game. A lot of times our applications here, I only need one scene out of my project. So I may actually have a project that's got multiple scenes in it. But when I build my application, I only want it to have one scene. It's not going to have like a menu area, then a main level and another level. I'm not going to advance through different levels in my project. I just want my project to be this one thing. So I need to make sure that the scenes that I include in the build are the ones exactly as I want. So I've got two scenes in this project. I've got one that's called MC Barf, because that's kind of what I expected it to do. And then I've got this other one here called Earthy Spin, which is the one that I'm currently looking at right now. So MC Barf is a different scene in this project. If I want to make sure that my Earth Spin thing is what shows up on my phone, I have to make sure that it's the only selected scene in this list. That it's in this list, and that it's the only selected scene in this list. Does that make sense? You're looking at me.
So you can't. What would happen if you imported, or if you put both scenes on the list?
This would be the only one that I was seeing because I don't have any mechanism to switch between the scenes. So just like in a regular game, you'll have some sort of level select, right?
Okay.
Or some sort of progress. I've made it to the end of this level, go to the next one. If I don't build that in, right, then it's going to open up the first one in the list, and I won't have any mechanism to go to the next one. So even though it's part of the application, it's built into the thing that I'm running, I'll never see it. Well, unless I'll have to build in some way to access it. So you can actually have multiple scenes in your build. I just have to be able to manage those scenes. And scene management is a topic in and of itself. For our purposes, we're only going to have the one scene that gets built as at any particular thing. Then if I go to build, it's going to ask me where to put the APK file. Since this is an Android application, it's going to build an Android APK. And then that's all it'll do. If I build it, that's all it'll do is make the APK, and then I'll have to copy my APK over to the phone or something like that. But if I go build and run, it'll still ask me where do I want to put the APK. But once it builds the APK, if I have a phone attached to the computer, it will copy the file over to the phone, install it, and start it up. But we'll look a lot more at how to configure your system to build for Android and what's involved in building Android applications. Probably this afternoon. I was thinking that we would take some time this morning and actually try and work with a Unity project, make something happen. You've got it running on your laptop there, right? You guys want to go downstairs to the lab and try and do something? We got a couple of machines down there. Now, in terms of what we're going to make it do, because we're going to take this and we're going to put it on the merge cube later on, right? Whatever we come up with should be something that's sort of self-contained. So think about what kind of things could go on the merge cube. We saw the video that had lots of, like the castle or something like that. And you can look at it and you see people walking around. It might be a little ambitious. And then you had that idea where you wanted to take that imagery coming off the earth. That'd be interesting to see if we could make that
Let's
happen.
do that. It's easy to grab.
Okay.
Should be easy to pull up. I don't know how it's animated, but it's something. Obviously, it's a web standard, so we can find it and play with that.
Yeah, there's got to be some way that I can make a request to a URL and get that image back.
Yep.
So
Or even if we just download one of them and it's not auto-updating, that's fine too.
Oh yeah, that'd be super easy.
Right.
Yeah.
But doing one and switching it, that would be kind of cool too.
Yeah. Or have it just every little bit poll to see what the.
Right.
Okay. So I guess we're going to go downstairs. And I'm going to stop this recording for a little bit.